We have to set up the board again, the video, window capture, okay. Here we go. And sometimes, I don't know if it's a little bit of lag in my internet connection, but we do occasionally have to restart the stream. Hopefully it will cooperate now, guys. Try refreshing your page now. Good, we got that sorted out in the first 10 minutes of the stream. Yeah, d5, honestly, okay, I mean, most people exchange on e5 in these kind of structures. That's the kind of standard thing to do. But d5 is reasonable here. The problem with this, though, might be that you kind of have to waste time playing c4. For my part, I'm not sure. I want to welcome Jeroen, especially our moderator, everyone else, Suvik, Constant Change, Salty Ego, Asit Passes, all you guys, welcome. The problem here is like knowing where to put my knight. If I play knight e7, it's a little hard for black to coordinate. You know, the pieces get a little tripping on each other, like in the Mar del Plata King's Indian. And then knight b8 gives us more coordination, like the pieces aren't in each other's way as much, but it's more passive in general. So kind of a tough call here. If knight b8, it can recirculate to a6 and d7 and or d7. There's something a little bit like a Ruy Lopez or Spanish game about this. I feel a little bit like it's a Spanish. e4, e5, h3, pawn on e4, knight on f3, bishop on d3. Okay, not exactly, but the bishop can retreat to d3 in the Spanish sometimes. So there are some similarities. The fact that white hasn't played c4. I have a plan. Very aggressive plan for black here. Sorry guys, I have to tie my shoe. Might as well just leave it untied while I'm doing a stream, but I'm anal retentive, so. Alright, let's hope the stream holds up. And that position you guys see on the board now, yeah, it would have been nice if he hadn't played d5. If white tries to keep the tension there, then I have like d5 myself. So he has to exchange on d5 or else play pawn takes pawn d5 as he did. So c4. Unfortunately, I have to counterattack the center. Nimzovich rolling over in his grave as I attack the head of his pawn chain here. And oh man, I hope I can do something with this. I had an interesting move last move. It'd be kind of crazy to play like knight f5. Knight f5, pawn takes pawn, e4, sacrificing a pawn. That's kind of a cool idea. I've never seen that come up before. Wow. So anyway, I wanted to play b5 here. Let's go for it. We don't have much time, and I want to create some counterplay. What would Joseph Henry Blackburn would play b5 in this position. Highly recommend you guys study the classics, the best games from the previous century and whatnot. I learned something the other day that I didn't know. That the hippopotamus actually was invented pre-1900. So the whole idea of playing like g6, b6, bishop g7, bishop b7, e6, d6, knight d7, knight e7, that kind of formation was actually played in the late 1800s. I always thought this was a more modern contraption, but I found some Günzburg games that he played in like 1893 or 1889. A whole bunch of games where he played the hippo. It's kind of cool. I actually found one game that Greco analyzed or played, like, apparently, I don't know if he just like made up the game or he actually played someone, but Greco has analysis of a hippopotamus from 1640 or something. That's pretty cool. Anyway, I don't know how I got on the subject of the hippopotamus, but in general, like, speaking about old school players playing kind of modern style, like Blackburn was pretty modern. I mean, this is a very this whole idea of like attacking the pawn chain, this is not really conventional. I mean, this is extremely aggressive, and I normally don't recommend playing on the strong side of the other player in the King's Indian type of formation like this, but he's a little bit behind in development. His king is still in the center. So I think because his king is still in the center, I have tricks, you know, tactically based on like queen a5, sometimes e4, clearance sacrifices to open the long diagonal. So this type of idea, though it's positionally kind of questionable, may be justified tactically. He took on c6, which is certainly solid. Now I guess I have two moves here, b4 or b takes c4. B takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight takes c6. It looks like white has a good game here. I don't really achieve much. Maybe b4. Maybe better for me to play b4. b4, knight d5. Knight takes c6. After pawn takes c4, bishop takes c4, knight takes c6. I don't know. Maybe we can fight for the d5 square. I guess white is better here. Hedgehogs for me. I'm pretty sure the hippo existed before humans did. Good point. Tell me why queen a5 isn't a good idea. Well, I don't think we have enough backup, you know. Queen a5, it's like a one-move threat. He's just castling. I mean, at what point could I play queen a5 that would really be effectual, you know? I'm not sure. I think white is better here. I think this was a fail, basically. This was a fail, and I just have like a dragon where I played like e5 or something. It looks like we're gonna have to be pretty creative to make this work. It looks like a normal Sicilian where I just went e5 without any real provocation. Oh my goodness, it's not great. So white just stands much better positionally. I tried to do something aggressive, but going against the grain, after knight e7, the better plan would be c4, knight e8, I guess, or knight h5, actually. Yeah. I didn't really get settled in here today yet. It's my first game for the day. Knight h5, g3. He's not committed to castling kingside, so... But still, that probably would be my best plan. going out on a limb, literally. Okay, this is debatable if he should go bishop d5 or not, but I don't think it can be a bad move. It can't be a bad move. He had other options to keep the bishop, but okay, bishop d5 is certainly solid for white. Knight c4, I can challenge his knight on d5 at some point with knight to b6, but white stands better here. I like the two knights against two bishops, though I have f5 kind of counterplay a little bit at some point. Well, okay. You can take with the pawn there too, but objectively, got this Sveshnikov kind of position. Very backward d-pawn. In general, the two knights are often better than bishop and knight against the bishop pair. They coordinate pretty well together. He's playing for the d6 weakness here. I have literally like no time. Trying to undermine his control of the center, as in the Sveshnikov. Yeah, this I thought was the best move. Wow. Whoa. All right, we were just fortunate in the time scramble. I think I'm busted. Positionally, they're pretty much just lost. I mean, around this point, it should be a lost position. I saw that d6 is weak. I guess I have to make some kind of defensive move here, but it's it's pretty unpleasant for black. Queen b6 or something like that. White is clearly better. Okay, good game, Suvik. We got a million challenges. Etat Soir, Constant Change, Salty Ego. Unicorns is back. Wow, good to see you. Aussie Passes. Wow, how do we have so many challenges? Today's Friday. Nobody has a job. Playing terrible chess. I know the feeling. Did you guys see this, what I did here? It was really ugly. So all the challenges are good. Everything between 5-5 and 8-3. Hopefully we can get to all these games. But Suvik had a clear edge. Basically like winning. I mean, he was a pawn up without any real compensation for me. So I'm not going to repeat that experiment. Tried to be Joseph Henry Blackburn, but it just ended up being bad. C6 and b5, very, very risky kind of strategy. Etat Soir. let's try to open with d4. I do play all different stuff with white. I think that's GM Sharkies. Burr the Bird. We were just lucky to win, and I almost flagged there. I kind of froze when my clock got down to like 5 seconds. I started freezing because I couldn't see a move, but just did something. Luckily, my mouse didn't. My optical mouse didn't freeze up on me like it does sometimes. A Tatsuar. We'll give him a minute here. There's one rated challenge in there. Uh-oh. NM Unicorns challenged me to rated. You sneaky unicorns. He's done that before, but he hasn't played in a long time. He doesn't remember whether I play rated or unrated. D4 knight f6. So Unicorns should change his challenge unless he wants to lose his rating points. Or I do. D4 knight f6. What was I thinking? It was funny. Oh, I have a new opening I want to try to play with black. I just remembered. It's not something I invented, but I had an interesting idea the other day about something I've never played on the stream before, and I thought it would be fun. Could save it for Weird Wednesday, but it's a kind of playable opening. Okay, c4 g6. Yesterday I played f3 in a game, but I honestly don't know the theory of that. You know, I was just winging it completely. Let's keep it in something I know. Can't tell me I don't have a job. I'm gonna get a beer at 5:30 a.m. Just kidding, guys. Stretch my legs here. It's not good to be sitting all day. That's why it's not good to have a job. You have to sit. It's not healthy. Sit there in the office and work all day long. It's not healthy for your body to sit all day long. All right, so bishop g7, and it's King's Indian. I don't remember. I mean, we've played now a number of games, almost 20 games. A number. Like 19 is a bit more than a number. How many is a number anyway? A number of games with the Tatsuar, but the King's Indian proper. I was noticing one thing when I was preparing for some games at my last tournament. The 4 pawns attack has a pretty good score for white. If you look at like all the different variations that white can play against the King's Indian, it's kind of interesting, but the 4 pawns attack kind of like not that accredited by like top players. It's actually seemingly like the highest scoring line for white. Not that easy to play against. It's opening a little wide for my tastes. Let's play knight f3. If you prefer a rated, I don't mind either way. I chose rated because I thought it might motivate you to play your best. I always play my best. Unicorns. I promise. Constant change. Actually, Spinal Tap's on, but he didn't challenge today. He's recuperating from all the swindles I laid on him lately. Castle's knight f3, and then I thought we'll play something quiet and positional today. William Brown 99. I would like to see your Roy Lopez next game. You are white. Well, we'll try to play e4. I can't guarantee you my opponents are cooperating. Unfortunately, I can't guarantee black plays e5. So, I've played many things against the King's Indian. It's not as popular as it was, but like in the 80s and 90s, post Fischer and after Kasparov started to play the King's Indian a lot, the King's Indian was probably the most common defense for white in the late 80s, early 90s, until I would say like the mid 90s, when maybe like the Slav defense became more popular than the King's Indian. I mean on a general level. I'm not talking about like top GMs or whatever, although it probably trickles down due to people following the trends. But There was a time when I feel like the King's Indian was the most common defense I encountered, whereas nowadays it would be the Slav. So I have had occasion to try pretty much everything. There was a funny story like 2 weeks ago. I faced a game, I guess I played a game where somebody played h3 and I couldn't remember the theory. h3 on move 6 or move 5, and I've played so many things I actually forgot I had played that with white against Max DeLugi. I completely forgot. I was like looking in the database for games where I played against h3, and I don't find any, but I find a game that I played with white that I completely forgot about. It's kind of funny. Knight bd7, old school. So the modern players mostly play a5 and knight a6 there. Petrosian variation. I mean, I guess the knight a6 and knight d7 can transpose in some instances if the knight goes to c5 early. Spinal Tap was streaming chess too. I didn't know that he was streaming. Do you prefer unrated? Okay, that's true. Recent studies are confirming that jobs where you sit all day have a strong correlation to cardiovascular disease. I would think a lot of diseases, and minor things too, like back problems. I mean, I've been sitting here. We've got to get some exercise between streams, guys. Anyway, h6, yeah. This is really going back to my 80s days. The super old school. But this is interesting now. I can recall playing a game on the stream against somebody not all that long ago where it seems to me something strange happened. Like I played knight d2 and my opponent played knight f4, and I played just totally extreme move, king f1. I have my doubts about that. You know, I'm certain that Petrosian has had this position. Had this position. Do we talk about Petrosian in the present tense or the past tense? I mean the old Petrosian, not the new Petrosian. Tigran, the original. Tigran the first. I'm not real up to date on this. h4 is a standard move. I think that's got to be the right idea. Yeah, I mean, this definitely... The last time I played one of these was like literally... Wow, knight f4. Well, I'm not really worried about this pawn, so I guess I just take on g5. That's what I figured. I think last time I did knight d2 against somebody, but it makes much more sense to play h4 and open the h file. I don't want to take on f4 necessarily and open up his bishop on the long diagonal. That's what I don't really want to do. But I don't have the benefit of consulting my Petrosian books. I mean, I would imagine white could just sacrifice the g2 pawn as a kind of like long-term positional sacrifice. You could play like knight to d2, knight takes g2 check, king f1, knight f4, king g1, followed by like knight f1 to e3 to f5. We should have like full term, sounds like a pregnancy or something. We we should have like long-term compensation for this pawn sacrifice if I choose to sacrifice it. On the other hand, I don't have to sacrifice anything. I mean, maybe it's just safer to just go here. Rapport is a maniac. Yeah, I don't know where he got that from. It's very strange. I mean, none of the other Hungarian players, top Hungarian players in recent memory, have been maniacs. And it's very weird. I don't know. The thing is, he's fairly wealthy, comes from a wealthy family. And I don't think that's been the case with very many Hungarian prodigies in the last 50 years. So he's had the luxury of having lessons with pretty much like a bazillion top players from all different nationalities and places. So I think that Rapport's had tons of trainers. So who knows where he got his influence, to have this really like maniacal style the way he does. He's not like a classical Hungarian trained player in that sense. He's had a lot of influences from outside his home country. Now, should I play b4? What would happen here? We have to seriously ask that question. He goes like knight a6, I guess, and that's it for that. Well, I don't know, guys. This is going to get pretty weird. I don't remember if it was Atatsuar who played this other game with me in this type of position, or who it was. Bishop d3 check. Speaking of Rapport, it's getting pretty crazy. I won a nice game against Rapport. I got to get that in there, before he's like world champion or something. But it was quite a while ago. If you guys look it up, you can see I beat him in like 27 moves or something. This is a very hesitant move, bishop g6. Why would you give up the ghost there? But now b4. I think I'm going to go for b4 now. You can help yourself. I'm not overly concerned about losing my b4 pawn. We have various modes of counterplay. But I think that black with the bishop on d3 should have seriously played e4 and ensured that this bishop on g7 would remain open. Yes. Rapport just needs to chill out, a little bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be like he plays like a draw master or something, but he doesn't have to be a complete maniac. I wouldn't want him on my Olympiad team. I don't know about you guys, but I can just imagine the other GMs on the Hungarian Olympic team when he was like going berserk in these team games against like Alexei Shirov. That's embarrassing and like frustrating, So when you're playing a team type event, you have to keep the team in consideration, number one, not yourself trying to play like your brilliancy prize game of your life or something. So like the Hungarian team had Rapport instead of Leko. You know, this is a situation where you definitely want Leko on your team. Somebody who never loses but's very strong. Queen b3, rook b1. I guess rook b1. I'm pretty low on time here, so I don't really have a lot of options. We've got c8 under control. So if I take on b7, he can't depend on something like queen c8. And I'm sure a lot of people have been looking at the possibility of like me taking on f4, but that opens up a lot of problems. You know, he can take with a rook, giving his king the f8 square. He can take with a pawn, opening the bishop on g7. So I'm not really sure I want to take that knight anytime with bishop takes g3 takes f4. Imagine a team of Rapports in the Olympiad. They would either finish like first or last. You know, there'd be no in between. Well, I guess it's safe to say that it would have been better to play queen b3. This is absolute disaster. Man, kidding me. I just hung a pawn. I'm just hanging various things here. God, queen b3. I didn't imagine knight takes a2 would be possible. Seriously. b6. So now we're just... Unfortunately, we're in some trouble here. If he didn't have an a pawn, I guess chances would be better. There it is. But not all hope is lost. We have the h-file and we have some attacking chances on the king's side. Where is he going anyway? We're winning a piece, no? I guess not. He has g6. Sort of. It's not the best square in the world. This looks... Maybe queen h5 there would have been best right away. All right. No more mercy. No. The Tatsuara is pretty fast. He doesn't want to trade queens, huh? I thought he could have traded queens there, but who knows? The games so far today have been pretty dodgy, guys. Oh my goodness, what is this? It's really hard to find that move. Alright. Oh, what a game. Okay, that's blitz chess. It's pretty messy. We have a million challenges, and all you guys, for the most part, are regulars here, except for just KS, who I don't know I've ever played before. But good to see so many people out and play me on the stream here. Constant change. I'm never going to be able to play all you guys. Friday is awesome. Man, that was bad. I just should have played Queen B3 instead of Rook B1, but was a dodgy position. We'll have to go back to the drawing board on that. H4 I'm sure is right, but after like Knight F4, H takes G5, H takes G5 in the opening, I was unhappy with the way it went. So I'm sure that there's some positions, some games with that position that I need to take a look at. All right, constant change now. Let's try to play Alakin's defense. It's I think I played this once against constant change before. He seems very well versed against kind of mainline openings like the Sicilian and E4, E5, but we try to trick him by playing something kind of substandard. I was talking about this the other day. It depends on what he does. I mean, yeah, I think we might have played this once before. So most people play bishop c4, and we could play bishop e6 or c6 there. I like this line. He plays a very simple setup. It's fine for white. I guess I can play g6 here. Nothing wrong with that. Transposing to kind of another form of typical Alakin's defense position. Maybe you should extend your stream for another 3 hours to get to all the challenges. I know, guys. Friday night is my night off. You'd be cutting into my free time. There's a tournament here. I was going to go visit some friends of mine. It's a pretty weak tournament, though. I decided not to play. There's a Pereni memorial to commemorate the master Bela Pereni who died tragically. He was kind of a theoretician and well-loved player here in Hungary. It was a long time ago when he died, but every year they have a memorial tournament for him, so that's going on. And it was fairly weak. There's one really strong player, Axel Gargo, but nobody else, so I decided not to play in that. Maybe I'll go visit some chess players. Wondering whether or not I should have taken the rook on b1. Well, it's a good practical question. I mean, whatever happens there, it's always going to be a little bit messy. You're playing a pretty high-risk strategy to begin with, you know, with like g5, knight h5, knight f4. So here, I've talked about this before. I don't really like exchanging on c3 in these type of positions. Sometimes the rook is sort of menacing on the b file. But on the other hand, I think that knight b6 looks pretty standard, actually. This is probably still close to a main line, although normally white wouldn't play d4 in these positions where he plays like bishop c4 before d4. You'd see like bishop c4, knight b6, bishop b3, knight c6. In those structures, white just plays d3, not d4. So with that in mind, you know, I feel like white's playing a setup where he normally would play d3. Maybe this knight would go to e2. Is the d4 pawn a target? It's like a Grunfeld. I played a lot of Scandinavians with g6. It's kind of a cross between the Scandinavian Alekhine's defense. This pawn is a bit of a nuisance for white to have to keep that protected. Yeah, Plucro. Knight b6. It is a move indeed. I mean, I've made my opinion clear about knights on knight 3 many times on the stream. It's just a really bad square. One of the worst things about playing like the Scandinavian with knight f6 is that your knight's all the time condemned to this like inactive square. Hard to get that piece back in the game. You know, it's always an issue. So, I mean, in general, you know, all other factors being equal, most often in these kind of situations, I prefer to like make a constructive move, like supporting my center with c6. But these type of positions where you do like c6 and h3, black doesn't have any counterplay. This is how Michael Adams, for example, plays the white side of Alekhine's defense. Just like not giving black any counterplay, no exchanges of pieces. White has a good knight, like coming to e5. It's a very unpleasant position for black. So this knight is taking one for the team, basically. The knight is willing to like be bad in exchange for letting the other pieces be good. That's the basic moral of the story. Fisher said you had to give squares to get squares. I guess it's something like that, you know. We're going to have one really sucky piece in order that the other guys can be really valuable and effective. It's a trade-off. You like bishop d7, what? Bishop takes f7, knight g5 check, queen f3. Yeah. Didn't enter my mind, but that's good to be aware of. Now knight e2. That's a bad sign for white when your pieces are moving a second time in the early stage of the opening. But he has a kind of valid idea. I mean, he wants to play c3 and reinforce his center. It's not objectively dangerous for black. I could even play e5 if I want to here. Grunfeld type position. a5, a4. No one Hungarian grandmaster who would be very likely to play that. The Grunfeld, its spirit is similar to this position. Hungary used to have quite the theoretical experts on the Grunfeld, but nowadays not so much. Bishop g4. What does it really do? Double his pawns. Kind of hard to argue with that. Bishop takes f3 is going to be forced. Unless he plays d5. Well, this develops a piece. It's a problem piece. So often in so many openings. But I think the other plan with a5, a4, or just simply castling is okay. So now a5, a4, it's a little weakening. But there's a chance he plays, of course, like a4 to stop me. What about my king here? Are we gonna just castle kingside, or we have to contend with white having some ideas, let's say. And the white squares are a little sensitive for black. He has knight g3, knight e4, which is a pretty nasty motif. E5 for black. Well, we're going to run out of time soon. So this is double-edged. We are kind of a little vulnerable on the white squares, but I wanted to stir things up and get something going. I don't know. It does give the queen some squares. You know, my first instinct is play something quiet like e6 just to shore up the white squares, but then I guess h4 bothered me a little bit. Perhaps I just play h5 and then bishop g5. Not so clear. Well, we've got another King's Indian situation on our hands here. b5. The b5 undermining move would be nice, but it's not happening. Maybe I should have played a5 at some point. But I think black's position is still okay. He's got this pretty long-term weakness. Just learning how to play, 18 years old. Does he stream regularly? I do. I'm streaming Monday to Friday, Central European time. The sick knight. I want to play knight f5, but there's no time. I don't want to allow him to roll with the pawns here. But this position is kind of a little bit weird. I'm not that confident black is better. I mean, structurally I'm better. This is a pretty serious long-term weakness for white, but on the other hand, my pieces aren't very active, so we do have a dark square blockade kind of coming into perspective here. I would choose black if I have to make a choice between one or the other. I have little experience. Reverting to my Scandinavian with knight f6 type of experiences. Queen h4, bishop h6, knight c5. Key blockading square. I don't know, is his king ever going to find happiness in this position? And Is his bishop really as good as my bishop? Two bad bishops, but which one is worse? And pawn structure is better for black. Opposite color bishops is very important. Like whoever has the initiative usually has a massive advantage. So activity is absolutely huge in opposite color bishop positions. Now it looks like I have queen g5. I mean f5 is a move. Queen h4. a5. I guess a5 gets my vote. I have to admit I entirely missed that. But black should still be better. I hate trading my knight for his knight. I don't want to trade queens either. I guess he's okay here. It's so sad. Ah, but I have this. Okay, so we are better. He takes with the queen. Yeah, but I mean in this situation, we have a4, f5, and pretty nasty stuff. All sorts of pawn sacrifices, like a3 and e4. So whose bishop is better? That's not going to be enough to win the game, though, unfortunately. e4 sacking a pawn. Bishop takes b2. We just castle. I mean, I guess I should have checked first. Wow, castle's queenside. Why wouldn't you castle kingside? It seems so much safer. a3. This is going to be hard. It's going to be a little hard to break him down, I guess. It seems safer for him to put the king on g1. I think I should have checked in the first place. I also fixed his pawn structure when I played knight takes e3, but I don't really think I had much of a choice there in regard to that. This may prove very difficult to win. Do have rook f2 here. Cow. I'm having kind of hallucinations. Rook takes a2 does work here. I hope. There's a check and another check. So at the end of the day, it's a battle of bad bishops. Is this actually working, this defense? Check. Oh. Constant Change, I saw you were playing in the weekly classical tournament yesterday where I played one game. That was a draw against somebody. I was wondering how you did in that. It looked like you were doing pretty well. Soul to Ego 5-5. We have an ongoing correspondence game. Queen F2 check and then Queen E2. White missed a draw. Soronchi says, I believe due to A3 and the mighty bishop G7, black is better. I'm sure that we both missed some tactics there. B3. So against B3, pause the stream, try not to lose in 20 moves. I'll just play what I normally play. Yeah, so this is interesting. I talked about this briefly in the stream several weeks, maybe a month or so ago. There is some analysis on this position. It's pretty unclear. F3. There was an IM I was playing online, a Spanish guy. I think Spanish. H4, sir. The pork chop. We used to call this the pork chop. It's like an accelerated pork chop where you do B3 and bishop B2. This is the pork chop formation over here. My friends and I learned this from a master when I was a kid, but as a joke, they used to play F3 on move 1 and then follow up with like King F2 and H4. That's the formation that white has now. It looks extremely weak. Queen D6, anybody? Queen D6 forcing the pork chop. And essentially forcing the pork chop. The subtle threat of mate in 1. I'll tip him off to that. Actually, speaking of other interesting lines, if one B4, I mean, some people might argue that B4 is a better version of B3, but after B4, D5, bishop B2, Queen D6, that is an idea. He's letting me play Queen G3 check. Now, if I do play Queen G3 check, let's say, hypothetically, is that going to benefit me? Or does my queen just end up in a stupid place? Yeah, I think I'd rather just not. Actually, I even want to take it. I mean, check in knight F2. It looks a little weird. Let's just play some kind of sensible move here. I don't really care to play Queen G3 check. I just get my pieces out on the weird limbs and let's just play in the center. As far as where this guy goes, I guess E6 invites knight G5, so we're either going home or going to D7. Was this some type of challenge? Yeah, it makes you wonder, why is Soul to Ego playing so strangely in this game? It's not, you know, every Wednesday I do a stream where I play unusual openings, but I mean, it seems like it's an almost conscious effort by white to play like ridiculously here. e4. I think f6 is a solid move. There is one little issue that I don't really like. Whoops, not that. Maybe h5 for black is worthy of consideration. h5, g5, I suppose. But on the other hand, I'm kind of giving him a lot of space. I guess he's going to play e4. c5, e4. If he does play e4, how am I dealing with e4 here? So we have to ask ourselves that question. f5. Alright, let's play something creative. Do I get my queen trapped if I do this? Yeah, practically. Okay, never mind. There is bishop a3, which I don't really like. So I'm going to do c5. Whatever happens here, I don't think that white's position is great, but it's not that easy to break it down. Constant change. There was a guy, king 9812 in that tournament, who won against me. It was a crazy game. And next day I got my rating back. His account is closed. Yeah, I did see that account doing really well in the tournament yesterday. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's always going to be, there's often going to be, hopefully not always, but often going to be some people trying to exploit the system. But it's really naive to think that, you can play in a tournament like that and cheat and get away with it. It's probably not going to happen. So anyway, good tournament, constant change. I don't understand the pairing system in the lichess tournaments. Like, there was some guy I played who was over 2440. We played one game in the first round of that tournament, and I'm paired with the other highest rated player in the first round. I mean, okay, the tournament doesn't have to be a Swiss system, but I still don't understand how the two highest rated players should play each other in the first round. That seems kind of odd to me. This guy played very solidly against me in an a6 Slav, and I couldn't get anything with white, so it was just a draw. a6 Slav is really one of the more popular openings for black against d4, and it's pretty hard to get an advantage with white under any circumstances in that opening. So what's he doing here? Queen d2. We just have a lot of space. It's like a weird hippopotamus. Like a deformed hippopotamus. I was speaking of the hippopotamus. The stream is a bit choppy. Well, the camera's choppy. I don't know. I mean, the webcam, because it's on a low FPS setting, but the stream should be okay. I don't know what you mean by choppy. There's a little bit of delay, which is typical with lacking frames. Just the cam. The cam, don't worry about the cam. It's not the main point. But I had to lower the FPS setting because we were dropping frames at the beginning. So sometimes that happens, and to be on the safe side, I had to lower the frame per second. But the camera really isn't the main point here. A6. He's not really doing anything. I'm trying to not do anything. I'm not doing anything yet either. I guess I should just castle queenside. A lot of people abuse the pairing system by playing only 1 or 2 games and then withdrawing. Artificial boosting of accounts. But what do you mean by that, grueling stance? Like, I mean, a lot of people might play 1 or 2 games, including myself, you know, and then withdrawing, but how is that like benefiting someone to play 1 or 2 games and withdraw? I mean, if you play games, you play games, but I'm not really sure like why that's like dishonest or manipulating the system. We managed to turn it into a kind of what looks like a samish, King's Indian samish, and White's position looks pretty weird. I wouldn't want to play chess like this with White. I mean, it's so bizarre and hard to coordinate. Knight and f2 is difficult to really use. We're eyeing the b3 pawn, the f3 pawn, trying to induce him to weaken himself. He has this great time advantage, 1 minute to 30 seconds. 5 seconds increment though. That's a lot of time. Perhaps it benefits because people in tournaments don't play the same as a single game for ratings. How's that called in English? They create the rule, they will create the cheat. No, I know what you mean. Like, okay, I mean, I understand what you're saying with this blunder. Right, if you make a rule, they'll find a way to cheat, basically. That's what he's trying to say, I guess. Let's just play d4. I could take on c4, but everything's good. I mean, but White played a really ridiculous sort of formation. I mean, he can't expect that to work out in most instances. He has some ideas. Oh. Well, if rook b5, I'd just play a6, I guess, and reorganize. Look how he's coming after me. He's got all his pieces on good squares coordinating now. It's pretty amazing. So if you just didn't play a ridiculous opening in the first place, you'd probably do a lot better. Salty ego. Why not play like a good opening to begin with? Because it looks like you really can play chess. Just you're handicapping yourself in the beginning of the game. Man, he's got massive compensation with perfect piece coordination now. What happened here? I could play knight c3 if I'm like desperate. Look at this. Yeah. I very nearly got in trouble. He might have had g6 at some point. Oh my god. What? Queen takes a4, bishop takes check, king a8. Are you kidding me? Where do you even come up with that idea? Who would even come up with that idea? Like, seriously. Whoa. I'm seriously frightened. The queen sacrifice? Guys, we have a little over an hour, but I'm still in a state of shock from this queen sacrifice he offered here. Let me just see that position. I mean, here, queen takes a4. So I can't take it. It looks like it's fatal. Oh no, it's a draw apparently. Bishop takes check. King b8. Oh yeah. Bishop a5 check, king a7. Good thing I saw that because... Oh my god. So there's a draw. Did you see that? Soldigo. I thought I was getting mated. Alright, I thought it was worse. NM Unicorns... And Unicorns, I don't understand why you left the rated challenge there. Alright, if you'd like to play, just feel free to re-challenge me to unrated. And I'll put you right back on the list. Asi passes c4. That's an amazing queen sacrifice. I know that somebody asked me to play e4. We'll try to do that. We have an hour left. Somebody asked me to play basically a Royal Paz with white. So I will try to play e4 in my remaining e4 games, and hopefully somebody will cooperate and play the black side of the Spanish, because we did have a request for that. It looks like I did the right thing, declining the queen sacrifice, but that whole game was really insane. I don't know, man. I think that you're a little too creative, Soltigo. That you should say that for my Wednesday stream. In the interim, try to play some some boring, like, traditional chess. I have a lot of respect for creativity, but that game might have been going a little too far. All right. So Aussie passes here. Just basically a closed English. There's not really anything I can do special. I don't know about my move order. I mean, knight c3, knight f6. Black wants to play this kind of formation. I could have played knight f3 at some point. It wouldn't stop e5. So we just have a standard English opening type of structure. Guess there's nothing special. At one point you were really scary. The position started to look really scary. I had like to find only moves toward the end there. Really speculative. H4 Soltigo. I mean, I'm just assuming I'm not going to find that move when I look in the opening encyclopedia. Or but you should know that E4 is a known gambit line. After bishop f5, f3, bishop f5, e4. I actually thought about playing the Kopek, but figured I would know how to crush that already. Your own said, what? All in all, it was a nice game. Yeah, I mean, you almost made it work. So this is not really a popular setup for black with the bishop on e7. I mean, most people prefer to fianchetto with bishop g7. I've talked about this with a lot of students and whatnot. I mean, ideally, the bishop on g7 allows the other pieces to have more squares to move to. Queen e7, knight e7. But it's playable for black. You know, Dutch style, the Simon Williams, classical Dutch type of setup for black. Just a little more passive than like g6, bishop g7. But it's different. I mean, it allows for different plans. Playable for black. I like how there's a speculative king sack. Nice queen sacrifice to find, though, with very little time on the clock. Relatively little time on the clock. Yeah, if Unicorns re-challenges me, he'll be next up. Yeah, playing these strong masters while streaming, it's safer to play unrated. Well, at least I know with Unicorns he's not a computer or something, but still. It's hard enough playing you guys who are like 2300 without telling you what my next move is going to be. Queen e8. Although a lot of people don't listen to the stream when they play. Like I know Soltigo said he wasn't going to listen to the stream. Yeah, Queen e8. It's been a long time since I had to deal with one of these. And to be honest, personally, I usually prefer to play English type setups with e3 to avoid this kind of kingside attack. Over my career, I've played a lot more, let's say, e3 in this type of position with the idea of knight ge2 than I have played d3. d3 isn't quite as safe for white in that it allows a bit more strong attack for black here with queen e8 and whatnot. So we have to be a little bit careful about this queen h5 and some kind of Dutch-like attack on the king side. Having said that, though, I mean, I don't if he can play f4 without just losing a pawn is not that obvious to me. b4, queen h5, b5. Knight takes d4, pawn takes d4, knight d5. Or we could play e3. I saw a game where Svidler played against Carlsen something like e3, queen h5, and knight h4. Similar position, but it looks very artificial for white. It's probably better to just go with the flow. Svidler not getting a very good position in aforementioned game. That was a slightly different position, though. This exact line. I mean, occasionally you see people do this setup with white. There was a German I remember George Zhu, who would play like the closed Sicilian with bishop e2, and that is a variation that has been analyzed. Queen h5. All right. Kind of like the Grand Prix attack, with the bishop on e7 instead of like out on c5 or on b4. Guys, I want to thank you for joining us here for my live stream on Twitch and lichess. Knight d8. Of course, knight d4 is a valid alternative. This way he doesn't exchange pieces. He can come to like e6. Now the question is what I should do. I mean, I need to take some kind of measures against getting attacked on the king's side. There's the catchphrase that the flank attack should be answered with a strike in the center, something like that, but exactly how to execute that, I don't know. I mean, I could play d4 and try to change the whole nature of the game here, basically. d4, e4, knight to e1, and then black seems to have some attacking chances on the king's side. Knight g4, h3. I don't really want to weaken myself with h3 if I can help it. e3. There's also c5. It's a little dangerous just to ignore the kingside threats. Where's my counterplay? All right, I'm choosing to not ignore the kingside threats. I mean, hopefully we can like trade queens or something like that and negate some of his kingside threats. But e3 has some disadvantages. It weakens the d3 square a little bit. Blocks my bishop on c1. It does reduce the chance he can play f4 effectively. He could still do that as a pawn sacrifice. Possibly right now. So the other move there that I thought was interesting was c5. When I think that black should just ignore it and get on with his business. Some continuation like knight e6. I didn't see anything special for white. c5, knight e6, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And then I wasn't sure what white should do to follow up in that position. Maybe knight d2. It looks like I'm moving away from the right side of the board, though. That doesn't look like the right idea. Like, I want to attack on the queen side, but at the same time, I have to keep in mind that I have to defend my king side. g5. g5, h4. Probably doesn't do a whole lot other than weaken my king side. Knight d2. Can play h3. I'm not sure that it's possible at the moment, but I mean f4 could be a defensive mechanism for white. This also opens up my bishop on g2, which is obviously a relevant piece. As usual, guys, I tend to use all my time, so we get into time pressure pretty frequently here. Rockin' Eagle says, I was trying to prevent that. White e4. Black plays e4 here, says MD DKY R1. Queen h6 now. Okay, queen h6 looks fairly logical. f4 is a move. Can I do f4 or knight e6? Too much trouble. I don't have too much time here. When in doubt, trade pieces. It looks like black has good counterplay. Kingside threat should not be underestimated. But I've been in this kind of situation on occasion before. I mean, f4 looked kind of risky, so maybe more harm than good that move would do. You have to make a judgment call regarding something like f4. I could meet knight g4 with knight f3. I'm not like losing immediately, but I am concerned that I would be weakening a lot of squares. Rook f7 surprised me. I thought he would take. I mean, now f4, it's more appealing to me. I feel like I'm better prepared to do this. So, it's starting to look like a typical, whoa. I forgot I could just take on c7. Yeah. Okay, so Dvoretsky said you're supposed to take the opposite way in these structures. I'm not sure if that always holds or not, but pawn takes the other way is okay too. I'm not sure which is better here, to be honest. I totally forgot I could take this pawn. Although it might have been a little dangerous. I guess it's just a blunder by black. Pawn takes f4. Well, I guess everything's good here. I am running really, really low on time. I don't know. He was going to take on d5, so you could make a case for pawn takes pawn and just take with the pawn on d5 and keep him confined. It's a strange structure, but like pawns on b5, d5, d3, f4 might actually be good for white because they control so many key squares. I think that was better than what I did. But anyway, it's a game. Rook g7. Obviously, I can defend my king side. And black seems to have pretty good play here. Maybe king h1 was a bad move. I don't have the option to play like h3 and be able to take on g4. Just keeps bringing more forces over here. And he's got this huge time advantage. For an 1800, he's scaring the life out of me. Almost checkmating me there. But I guess White's position is not too weak. Now I can take on g5, trade that offender. We just shore up our position here. Obviously, I could have bishop b2 at some point. He can meet it. Probably safer to play bishop d2. I don't think I really benefit from that, trading pieces like bishop there, bishop f6, queen h4. Playing a hell of a game. Everything's protected here. There's nothing what black can do. So bishop e1. That's why I wanted to keep the bishop on d2 rather than go bishop b2, bishop d2. Makes this possible. Very, very nice try, Asipasses. You came close to taking me out. We have a challenge from Just KS, and yeah, this guy's got an established account. I ask everybody, to have like 50 rated games or something. So I'm not playing somebody who's trolling me with an account they created today. Razzle time must be as flawless as Marshall. What? f4 might be necessary, otherwise black would play it. Well, he could have played it. There was one moment where I think he could have done it when I played knight d2, queen h6. Not sure now. I thought there was one moment where he could have played f4. It's pretty standard to allow it and then use the e4 square for white. I don't e4 h5. I was really trying to get e4 e5 and somebody wanted me to play a Spanish, so this is what I would do when I was like tilting in poker or chess and I just wanted to like play something ridiculous. But for a constructive stream like this, I prefer that we didn't play like totally absurd openings. Anyway, this is pretty bad for black. I mean, knight f6 here. You're 1881. It's tempting to play e5. And probably okay for white. But objectively, I guess everything's good here. Bishop g5. This is just... typically, if I played this absurd move, h5, I would follow it up with something like h4, trying to play h3, or maybe... I would always play h4. If I was going to play h5, I would play like e6 and bishop e7, and then try to maintain the pawn on h4, because when I played h4, a lot of people would play h3, and then e6, bishop e7 to maintain the pawn so it doesn't fall, and maybe this isn't really good for black to play, you know, knight f6, and I don't think that's great. Now h4, I mean, I'm actually copying him. Guess we're playing bullet chess as well. So this looks pretty good for white. Spatially, it's like a French. Good French for white. Just Chaos, do you play a lot of bullet chess by any chance? 300 games. This would do better in bullet, probably. This is unrated, right? Maybe keeping the tension is the best policy here. Chess Quack. I drew Rufang Li with h5 in a rapid game when tilting. Beat me in our other games, though. Yeah, it's a great tilt opening. Now he's got all these pawns on white squares. That's not really a problem. The problem is the dark square weaknesses. And now he's dropping a pawn on d5, so it's lost. If it was just a pawn, it would be one thing, but he's way behind in development, and it's just crumbling. So it's more than just a pawn down. He's got fatally weakened his position. So I thought, honestly, yeah, d5, queen d2. I mean, his plan should be to play like b6 and bishop a6 and try to trade off the bad bishop there. I don't think there's going to be an easy day for black with the e6, g6 weaknesses here. I don't really know what the point of this type of play is. In this time control, like why play such a silly game? I don't know how you could be 1800 though. You may be letting a friend play or something like that. Go for the g6 pawn here. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyway, guys, this was kind of a crazy game. So maybe we'll get a serious game next time I'm white. Mule Skinner is always serious. And we are white again, so e4. And maybe we'll get our wish. Like a million tempi ahead. Anyway. We did have one player, I don't know who it was, like request that I play the Spanish. Oh, Unicorns re-challenged me. My God, I'm sorry, Unicorns. You've been sitting there waiting, and I didn't accept your challenge. I'm so sorry, man. I meant to do it, but thank you, Yurun. Okay, Unicorns will be next. Sorry, Unicorns. Just totally slipped my mind. I'm trying to duck you. Anyway, we can abort Mule Skinner if he's not here and play Unicorns, and then Mule Skinner can come back. Let's do that. Because I don't think Mule Skinner is ready yet. Mule Skinner, if you hear me, just re-challenge me and you'll play next game. So, somebody asked that I play the Spanish. I don't know, if Unicorns is going to let me. Alright. Is that your normal repertoire, Unicorns? Or are you just doing this to be... Are you doing this to be friendly and help the guy who requested that I play the Spanish? So knight f6, the Berlin defense. I think white doesn't really want to go into castles, knight takes e4, which is just really hard for white to get any advantage. It's better to play either d3 or maybe queen e2. Let's try queen e2. The virtue of this, I think, is that it's a little bit less common than d3. So maybe some players like with black aren't quite as well prepared. This is a move that goes back to the 19th century. You guys, I want to remind you that we have a YouTube channel, Video Chess Training, where I do upload all the streams that I do here. So if you're not in the right time zone to watch, or like a lot of Americans, or if you just want to see like a replay of the video, you can check out my YouTube channel, Video Chess Training on YouTube. Oh, somebody was actually asking me in my training sessions, in your first training sessions with a student, how do you get to know the playing style and the player's weaknesses to help him improving his chess? Dwayne Cadera says this. Well, what I would recommend is, like, if somebody wants to take lessons, you can send me or give me, you can give me a bunch of your games. I don't mind doing some homework. So if anybody is interested in lessons, you should contact me, videochesstrainer@gmail.com. If that person who wants to get training wants me to go over some games in advance, that's the easiest way to solve that problem. I do like to study and analyze your games during the sessions when we do training sometimes, but it's better if I could see like a lot of games of a player before we even start working together. So d6 here. Now I'm just trying to remember what I've decided about this d6 in this position. I don't know what to think about that. With the queen e2, oftentimes you see bishop c5, probably the most common move, but I'm trying to recall if I analyzed this too much. Queen e2 and then d6 in that position. c4 doesn't seem right. I can play c3 and d4, kind of a standard, probably the main line. I mean, it's sort of not committing my king necessarily to the king side yet. Queen e2, I guess the queen e2 is the question, we can try to do without d3 and play d4 sometimes. There are also exchange variations, but I wouldn't recommend exchanging on c6. Once you play like c3 and kind of weaken your white squares, probably not as good. I think I saw a game or analyzed a game. There was a game between like some very famous players. I think Eugenio Torre and Reshevsky. Queen e2, d6, c3, and Reshevsky played something strange like bishop d7, and then that's not strange. But then white played maybe castles. And Reshevsky played queen e7, which was just really bizarre. I mean, bishop d7 is definitely a standard move. So, queen e7 was a strange idea. Reshevsky ended up in this like King's Indian type of position, which was very odd because Sammy Reshevsky was like famous for playing the Nimzo and beating the King's Indian. Actually, to see him playing black in a King's Indian, he was out of his element. Anyway. We castle or knight to d2 here. Exchanging on e5 is possible. It's not very aggressive. creating a symmetrical pawn structure. Though I have seen that. It doesn't seem like it really offers white too much. Now you could get this kind of position out of the whorl attack, but then black would have played a6, bishop a4. So the position is a little different from the standard Ruy Lopez, where black plays a6, bishop a4, and then white like later does queen e2, which is known as the whorl attack. The positions are similar. It seems reasonable to go rook d1 here. Try to make use of queen e2. Transpose to the Ponziani. Wow, interesting. e45, knight f3, knight c6, c3, knight f6, d4, d6. Okay, so that's like a kind of passive answer to the Ponziani. That's interesting. It's probably more than one opening. It's transposed to this. It's also a Ponziani. It's a good Ponziani for white, I'll say that. Guys, we're streaming for like another 35 minutes till 12:30, so after this game we'll play at least 2 more. Raul's the time challenged me to 30-10. Obviously I can't play 30-10. So I'm going to decline the 30-10 challenge. We only have time for 2 more games at 8-3 or 7-3 or 5-5, what have you. But I do guarantee at least 2 more games. Black's a little passive here. But I'm not sure if Unicorns really plays the black side of the Lopez, or he just did it to cooperate with our viewer because he's a good sport. I'm not certain. What's your favorite non-chess movie? Good question. I don't know. I always have like different favorites. It's always changing. So, Queen e8 was the move that I thought makes a lot of sense. Actually, that's a darn good move. We can play d5 transition to a King's Indian. I wouldn't say that's a standard thing to do here. You know, you'd want to keep black tied up. Keep the tension if you can. He's also indirectly threatening e4. Maybe. How? I don't know. But knight a3 a la Fabiano Caruana here. Looks a little weird. What to do? Bishop d3. He's actually not threatening anything, is he? Knight takes d4, knight takes d4. He's not really threatening anything. But then again, what's a useful move for white in this position? Like a3 or something? a3, weakening my queen side. Looks entirely lame. Queen e8 is a good move. Maybe pawn takes pawn. Bishop d3, take, knight b4, knight c3, knight takes d3, queen takes d3. I don't know what to decide. This was a lame move. Queen e8 is a good move, but there has to be a good move for white in that position. I didn't find it. I didn't like d5, just trading pieces and relieving his cramp. White needs to find a move where I don't trade pieces here. He played bishop g4. I'm basically playing a blitz game here. And unicorns is pretty fast. I mean, generally speaking, in the Lopez, this kind of bishop h5 on the short diagonal isn't usually that good. But my position's a little bit weird now. Rook on d1 doesn't really make sense with d5. So both sides have... I could give up that bishop. We only have 3 seconds per move with a 21-second bonus. But hopefully that's enough. I'm not really thrilled with the way I played this. Knight h5, wow. We have more space, but we have some weaknesses. What to do? Knight a4. Oh my goodness. What in the world is going on? Maybe queen c4 was better. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't play queen c4 in the first place. Still, black is probably better here, but it was a huge waste of time to play queen d3. I know why I didn't do it, because I had 13 seconds left and I started to panic, but queen c2. Wow, this move. Unicorns is playing blitz. But I'm not that certain that I'm worse anymore. The knight is a good defender. H4, D4, E1. Obviously, this pawn is pretty good. Oh, he had that. Master had that move. Nice move to find in time pressure. What? Master of tricky tactics. Okay, we were very, very lucky. So unicorns. I think I would have taken the threefold repetition there if he hadn't played for a win. One question IQ test, 5-5, guys. So last two games, you're tired. Yeah, you are at a disadvantage in terms of time zone. One question IQ test. That was a pretty long game. What was it? Almost 20 minutes. E4, C5. I played the Nimzovich today. I played the Alekhines defense. Different offbeat stuff. I don't get to see who won your last game because of the lag. Yeah, I did manage to win at the end. It was a pretty catastrophic game, though. I let Black have a huge advantage in the middle game and then defended and survived somehow. Let's try a G6 accelerated dragon, hyper accelerated dragon. Yeah, that's my strong point. I'm just hard to kill. That's what David Vigorito said about me once. That I think that's a good description of my playing strength, is that I'm just hard to kill. Oftentimes I get a bad position, but I'm a good defender. So the dreaded Marazzi. Yeah, it's really hard to win games with black against this opening. Let's try something we haven't played in a while. Knight c6, some kind of different system. There are more or less like 3 different ways black can play as black in the Marazzi accelerated dragon. Yesterday we had a game where one opponent played knight b3, I think a Tatsuar, but After knight b3, a5, black has a good game. Knight c2 would be a good way of avoiding exchanges. Okay, this is standard. Nothing really to do here other than play knight f6. Hard to kill. Yeah, that's my greatest strength. I never was an opening specialist, so at an early age I learned to become a good defender. But that's the way that some players were trained. Kamsky is very, very, very notable. You can see that he's never been a theoretician, and they really, his trainers didn't really let him learn a lot of opening theory, and he became very, very good in technique and defense. But Kamsky has something I don't possess, which is incredible endurance and will to win. That separates him from the average grandmaster. But I know a number of players like Karpov, Kamsky, Alexei Dreyev, who are... Dreyev later became somewhat of a theoretician, but Karpov and Kamsky... I never would have considered Karpov like a theoretician. Now, White's played an interesting move order here in the opening. I have to be a little bit careful. There was a game where somebody tried to kill me with this f3 castling queenside. Guess I could trade knights here. This is the safe way for black to play, trading pieces, but it's not very ambitious. Samish King's Indian. That's how I got into this kind of position. One game where I got in trouble on the stream. Totally different move order. The bishop e3, Samish King's Indian. So obviously this is not dangerous for black, but on the other hand, obviously very hard for black to play for a win. I could take on d5 or e6. If e6, we trade twice on f6. Queen d2. Well, that's a position, right? But this isn't really a winning attempt for white. White should play either bishop e2 or queen d2. Trading pieces is just like a way of keeping an equal position. Not objectively the best move for white to play knight to d5. Rook c1 and white gain time compared to normal lines. Interesting question. Rook c1. Rook c1 here. I don't know. I mean, it's not clear to me where that rook belongs. In many lines, it's better to have the rooks on b1 and f1 on c1. That's the only question. In the long term, if you want to advance your queenside, sometimes it's better to have the rooks on like b1 and c1. Now he decides to play knight e3. Which I did not expect. I mean, I thought that white is trading pieces here. This coordination is kind of strange. I might be able to play for d5. My biggest problem with knight d5, knight e3 is that white is wasting time here. Giving me time to complete my development with like bishop b7. e6 is not an unusual plan in the Marazzi for black to play for d5. Not a system I normally use. Guys, so yeah, there's a simul on Sunday. That'll be the next stream. I should have mentioned this already, but it's the first one I've done in a long time. Sunday, the 8th of January, 6:30 p.m. CET. I'm going to play 25 players here on lichess, 40-40. 40 minutes with a 40-second increment, and the colors will be random. So I'll play both black and white, and it'll be fun. I haven't done a simul since the first week of December, or even the last week of November. Honestly, I don't like this plan of knight d5, knight e3. Though he could try some kind of maniacal attacking plan. I think he's too far behind in development. This was a rational decision for white to castle kingside. Playing for a win here is the difficult task for black. Probably the greatest player for black in the Accelerated Dragon and Marazzi I can think of was Bent Larsen. I mean, there's a lot of modern grandmasters who have played the Accelerated Dragon, like even Anand, Leiko. I'm sure that every top player has kind of played occasionally the black side of the Marazzi, but Larsen was something of a specialist in every kind of dragon, so I draw some inspiration from some of his games, but still, it's very, very hard to beat anyone with black in this kind of position. There's a set of pieces off the board already. White has a strong clamp on the center with this c4, e4. And as you can see, it's hard for me to play d5 because white will not only like maybe trade a lot of pieces, but also he'll also be able to maybe play e5 in some moment. Queen b3. This is not defended. I think he's looking for queen a3. He's also keeping pressure on b6. Oh, you know what's funny? I just saw a tactic like this the other day. I could do like knight takes e4, bishop takes g7, knight c5, but it doesn't work here for a multitude of reasons why that doesn't work. I guess we'll just play standard dark square blockade strategy. The best square for my knight available. He does have a somewhat restricted bishop. What we'd like to do would be get, ideally, I don't know how that would happen, you know, like an exchange of this knight for my bishop and reach some kind of good knight versus bad bishop position. But I don't foresee that happening, me exchanging my white squared bishop for his knight anyhow. Not like he's going to play knight to d5 at some time. Anytime soon. Good outpost. And, you know, we could think about playing f5. I'm a little concerned about this position. He has knight g4. Maybe it's not dangerous. Oh, I'm in check. Why don't you tell me I'm in check? So I can't play queen f6. f6 looks okay. This is gonna be a little... e5 is better. I guess I have to do e5. We need an e6 square for the knight to run to. And we're down to 39 seconds. Because in the event he decides to play b4, I don't want my knight going back to d7. White's a little better here. This is a pretty standard... I would say this was a pretty standard game for the Marazzi. So good luck. Good luck for black beating anybody. Holding a draw is one thing, but winning for black is usually very difficult. That's why Spinal Tap, he's not here, but Spinal Tap says he doesn't play the Accelerated Dragon anymore because of this. And I think a lot of players stop playing the black side of the Accelerated Dragon because of the Marazzi. It's just too hard for black to play for a win. Although now F3 looks, I mean G3 looks kind of weakening for white. I think we're in pretty good shape now. F5. Where am I going to put my king here? I'm tempted to play for F5. We have a lot of options. H5, Rook C8, Rook D8, Knight D4. There was a little kid in a rapid tournament. Maybe I should play F5 there. Little kid like sacrificed the exchange against me. I was happy because otherwise like I'd never ever be able to play for a win. This type of position. Wow, look at this. King F2. Quite the adventurous concept. Rook takes. Also unexpected. I was a little concerned about C takes when your white square bishop starts to become a force. Guys, we're going to play, I promised to play one more game, so we're going to play one more game today, no matter what happens here. Wow. Never could find a happy square for my king. Kind of a double-edged situation. Seventh rank. I guess it's a draw, objectively. It's pretty double-edged. At the moment, it's a sharp move. I don't know what's going on here. Objectively. Was that even a good check? I don't know. I don't know what's happening. No idea. I guess I'm losing my voice, but other than that, everything's good. King H8, King H6. Jeez. King F8. One question IQ test is pretty strong, man. Pretty strong. It's like I'm fighting for a draw here. Only helpmate will save me. Still no mates. Well, now there is a check on b6, followed by bishop f7, which looks kind of nasty. My opponent offers me a draw. That's pretty generous. One question IQ test. Man, you're pretty strong for 1700. I guess this very well might be a draw. Finding a lot of good moves. I'm still playing on my stream while I'm starting this. You have a stream? That's interesting. What is going on? I wasn't aware you had your own stream. Knight takes e4. Interesting game. Okay, last game for today. Blue Crow 5-5. We're going to play, I guess, E5. We haven't played any E5 games. We're over time. I thought we'd be finished at 12:30, but I promised one more game, so I'm going to keep my word. It is a Petrov, maybe. I feel like playing some kind of Petrov. Blue Crow played with me one other interesting game. Can I get my Ponziani? Finally? Haha, okay. I didn't know you wanted to play the Ponziani. I don't think I ever had a win in that position. Maybe. The last game. White. I don't think White ever really had a lost position. He played masterfully in the time pressure. Knight takes e4. And now, all right. I've experimented with knight f6, but I don't really think that's a great move. It's interesting though. So here we go. Bishop e7. Everybody knows this though. It's like really over-analyzed, easy to play. No, there's this joke about like, you know, every 14-year-old could hack the DNC. It's kind of the same thing with this opening. I mean, pretty much like every, you know, 8-year-old could learn the theory of this variation for White, and play like 2400 ELO probably. Having said that, Bishop d3 is not the normal move. This is old school. This is like what they played back in like the 1900s or whenever Nimzovich first invented the system for White. I think Bishop d3 was the move, but modern players have done a lot of work on Bishop e3 and Bishop f4, and the plan to castle queenside and not necessarily move this bishop from f1 right away. So Blue Crow is playing like late 20th century with Bishop d3. It's not a bad move, but it's not considered as dangerous, I guess, as Bishop e3 and Bishop f4. Oh, Mubat timed out Raza Time. Yeah, Raza Time's gotten a little crazy with the spamming in the chat. One time I looked up, he had filled the whole chat. Knight to d7. Good job, Mubat. He's showing you up, Saronche. I'd like to thank our moderator, Saronche, for being here, even though he makes Mubat do all the work. It's good to have you, Saronche, and we wish you a happy new year. And good to have a human moderator in the chat. I'm not gonna replace your job with a paid position for Mubat. Knight to d7. Yeah, I mean, this knight has two possibilities. In the other lines, with Bishop e3 and Bishop f4, White's castling queenside quickly, and Black should probably do the same. The safest seems like Bishop e3, Knight c6, and Black plans on castling queenside. Castling kingside's a little bit dangerous in this line for Black, so a lot of like piece sacrifices have been invented with like h4 and Knight g5. Castling kingside is dangerous, so. Alright. How long am I missing that it's my move here? Now he plays Bishop e3, but we'd have like Queen d2 instead of Bishop d3 in the main line. Trading pieces. What's your favorite chess book? I never told DST my favorite movie. I don't have like favorite movie. I mean, Anyway, Cheveningen, good to see you, man. I like how Cheveningen shows up five minutes after my stream is over. He's going to be late to his own funeral. Knight to c5. Alright, you want to keep your... I'm doing good, Cheveningen. Good to see you. Happy New Year. My favorite chess book. Good question. I got to go with like 500 Master Games of Chess by Tartakover. It's just the ultimate like classic collection of great historical chess games. I think now we can safely castle on the king's side. I don't foresee any grave danger. Getting some development with knight d7 and knight c5. I mean, obviously white could take on c5, but black would be a tiny bit better with the bishop pair. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, guys. We're over time, so this will be the last game. Congratulations to my last opponent for holding a draw in the Marazzi. That was exceedingly long game, like 20 minutes plus. Favorite food? Cheveningen hasn't been active lately, but I've got a new job. Welcome to, yeah, actually not welcome because you're there. I'm not in the traditional job pool. But anyway, congratulations on getting a new job, Cheveningen. I hope it doesn't put a damper on your chess career. But it's good to know that you're balancing your life. Every chess player's dilemma is like, did I spend too much time playing chess? Castles here. Bishop g4. Bishop f5 walks into knight d4. Rook e8 looks like a good move. But I guess this is the most fundamental. The most fundamental move. Yeah, the Petrov isn't exactly the most dynamic opening, I admit. I would normally reserve this, you know, for like really high-rated opponents who I'm content for a draw against. But sometimes I just... Why g3? A strange move. I mean, you would expect h3 maybe. G3 a bit odd. Wonder why he played g3. To play king g2. Why did the chicken cross the road? I'm just gonna play logical chess. Obviously he could exchange queens, but then again, it's an ending where I'm a tiny bit better. If you want to play a system that's very safe, what he did here with bishop d3 is like an easy line to play against the Petrov. Queen c6. Subtle. White's put himself in an awkward situation. I don't know. You know, rook h1 and king g1. Not really what you would expect. He has b4. That would drastically weaken the c3 square. He has to be very careful now. Don't really like the way he played this. Chicken crossed the road to play the farmer chess. Cheveningen on Sunday will play the Polish Open Rapid Championship. Basically all top players from Poland. I was playing poker in Prague at the European Poker Tour Prague in December, Scheveningen. In one moment, I had like three of the best Polish high rollers on my table. Dominik Panka and these other two guys who are all like roommates. I don't know how they all ended up on the same table. I think it was a conspiracy. Bishop f6. Now, I'm afraid that b4 is starting to become a threat of some sort here. So we will play a5. Yeah, I thought you might see it your way. Well, tripled pawns look cool. Kind of like that. You gotta like the tripled pawns. I'm kind of conning him, and I'm not gonna actually let him triple my pawns. If he does like queen takes c6, b takes c6, bishop takes c5, we just play rook takes e2. Just kind of trying to trick him. B2's hanging. B2 is hanging here, but he can. We'll take. It is hanging. It also breaks up his structure, so. What is going on? I also have bishop c3, bishop f5. That's more active than the alternatives, right? Bishop d7, unnecessarily passive. Bishop f5, eyeing c2. I'm getting a little groggy here. Maybe this a pawn should go down to a3. Yes, I did see that. Where should I go? Oh no. No, no. No. Oh my goodness. I think that was a blunder. You had bishop takes d4. But now it's not so clear. You have this move. Egads. Apparently I sacrificed a piece. Unbeknownst to me. My rook's almost trapped. Kidding me? I sacrificed a piece, but I've got 3 pawns. He had this all planned out. It still looks okay for black. Not the original plan. Amazing what the time does to us. I don't want that knight coming in here. And there. Well, in any case, king is near the center. We have 3 solid pawns for our sacrificed piece. So it should be okay for black at least. Three-on-one majority on the queen side. I guess black should be trying to just play for a win. B4. Knight E4. Quite interesting here. Well, I don't think you have to resign necessarily. Yeah, maybe. King moves. Let's say king f3, knight takes b1, pawn takes b4, pawn takes b4, knight takes b4. I just play c5. It's probably lost. So some sloppy games today, guys. I guess that's Friday. We need a vacation or something. So I do want to thank those of you who have donated already. We had 3 really generous donations to the stream and my YouTube channel, which is Video Chess Training on YouTube. It's 2017, the first week of the year. We had, again, 3 generous donations. I'd like to thank those guys who donated. And I'd like to thank you guys for just tuning in and hanging out with me playing. And those of you who played, just supporting the stream by being here and playing and taking part, that's enough. But I especially appreciate those guys who donated to support the stream and my YouTube channel. So again, thank you and Happy New Year, everybody. And we'll be doing a simul on Sunday, which is 6:30 p.m. CET on Sunday here on lichess. 25 players, 40 time control. So hopefully we'll see some of you guys then for my first simul in quite some time. Thanks everyone, and thank you for Saronche for being here to moderate the stream and keep Mubat in line. Anyway, guys, we'll see you on Sunday, and after that, next week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. CET, Blitz and Classical Chess. Thanks again, and we'll see you Sunday.